Hey, this is Red Death here, and you're watching Heavy New York.
What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are back at the St. Vitus basement, and we are here with Red Death all the way from DC. Thank you guys so much for your time today.
What's up?
Yeah, thanks for having us, man.
Yeah. It's so awesome to have you here. Your newest record is Sickness Divine, which came out like at the tail end of 2019. Do you guys just want to give like a rundown on how the making of this record was, the recording, all that fun stuff?
I think like when did we start writing it? It was like
We started writing it, in like 2018. We started,
Yeah.
me and him,
Yeah,
specifically
yeah,
started
yeah.
like demoing, and like we had like rough ideas and started like fleshing them out, getting the process going, But I feel like we really geared it up at like the end of 2018, beginning of 2019, like a year ago. We really started like getting together and like really making songs.
because I remember we demoed a few songs in our friend Harold's basement when we were on tour with Power Trip, Sheer Mag, and Fury in 2018.
In Chicago, yeah.
Yeah, in Chicago, because him and I had a few songs, and we were just like, we're trying to work, so we were like, we had an off day, and we were just like, let's fucking try to work on some new stuff, and
Stay
that was,
grinding.
I'd say that's when it really started. I feel
That's for sure when it started. When we started being
Yeah.
like, all right, we got ideas. Like, we kind of have an idea of where we can go, where we might want to go from this demo. Kind
Yeah.
of setting a precedence of where we want to go with the sound and kind of flesh things out compared to the previous stuff.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like you were trying to make a direct continuation of Formidable Darkness. You thought that you were kind of trying to make like a new start for Red Death in a way?
Yeah, actually, that's a great way of
Yeah.
putting it. I mean, well, yes and no, because it's like we've always had the same influences, and like we've always been into the same bands. So like it's not like we were like sitting around listening to like Pharoah Saunders or something and being like, we gotta add some of this shit in there, man. You know what I mean? Like we're still pulling from the same, 5 or 6 bands that really like inspired us to start the band to begin with. I think we just are pulling from different parts of those bands now. You know what I mean? And I think that Sickness Divine represents sort of the start of a new era of the band in that sense. Like, all right, like we're throwing in the fucking Metallica classical guitar shit now. We're throwing in you know what I mean? We're getting a little slow sometimes. Yeah. We're not just going 1,000 miles per hour like we have before. So we're kind of varying like our influences, and I think that did sort of usher in a new era of the band.
It's like stuff we've always wanted to do, and like just like any good story or anything, a band, a movie, a book, whatever the hell, like you want to not lose the identity that you had, but you want to progress. You want to make something the same but different, I guess, but the same overall. You don't want to lose your identity, but you want to progress and push yourself.
Yeah.
And like I said, like he said, like the classical stuff, like that stuff I've been wanting to do with this band since day one.
Yeah,
but
forever,
there was no
yeah.
way to execute it. There was really no like, oh, we're there, we can execute it. It'll make sense at this point. Like we finally got to that point, and I feel like we still aren't even there. We're still working towards that, and we will work towards that. And I feel like as a band or anyone doing something, like I said, movie, book, or anything, like it should always be like that. You should be trying to push yourself and like progress as you go.
And the other thing too is like we started the band like Ace, the guitar player, and I were 19. You were what, 22?
22 or 23.
And it's like, so we were young, like we were literally kids. You know what I mean?
I was way different than I am now.
I see a 19-year-old now. I'm like, I'm 26 now. I'm like, you're a child. You're a baby. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But like, so we started the band when we were so young, and I feel like we didn't have the sort of creative means to do what we wanted to do fully. Whereas now we do, or we're at least we don't fully have it, but we're working, like we're better musicians, we're better songwriters. So I think on Sickness Divine, we're finally like, hey, let's bust out, the shit that we've been wanting to do for years, but never felt confident in doing, or that kind of thing.
Because like the classical stuff and stuff like that stuff, like we've had, it's just weren't really mature enough to execute it and get it done in the way that you hear it in your head. We finally got to a point where we could pull it out and translate it, and it be how we want it to be.
Yep.
Do you think, though, from Formidable Darkness and the record before that you had an idea in your head of what you wanted it to sound like, and that's what you achieved on Sickness Divine, but do you think that maybe kind of going outside the box a little bit in the first 2 records maybe helped you expand on your ideas in the future?
For sure.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
For sure. Because even the first the first album, like we have a song that's like influenced by Trouble, the doom metal band. Like
St. Vitus, Trouble.
yeah, like bands like that, where it's like we're not just following the, you know, hardcore punk trajectory. Like we have other influences that we're kind of letting shine even back then when I was 20 years old, you know what I mean, and when we had been a band for a year. So I think that now we're more comfortable. We're like, yeah, let's throw in the Danzig part, or like let's throw in the, you know, just like influences that we didn't think that we could pull off before, but now we're more confident
We're
with.
more mature and more confident, like, you know, going back to the classical thing and stuff like that. And I've been told, you know, the word I've been told with this record is there's melodies and stuff compared to before, you know, and stuff, like I said, stuff we've wanted to do, but not quite there. I feel like we've finally gotten there, and we will get there even more now, I feel like, too. So
Yeah.
Definitely. Now, I've always thought, though, like Red Death's music was a little bit, like, I don't want to say experimental. I feel like people who appreciated Formidable Darkness could also appreciate Sickness Divine and so on. But, like, you know, there's elements of hardcore, there's elements of thrash, some death metal. I think the first thing I ever compared you guys to was, like, Beneath the Remains era Sepultura, kind of like that.
Yeah, that's
so,
sick.
like, it shouldn't be that too hard to try new things when songwriting, right? You just like to experiment a little bit.
yeah, all our favorite bands have done that. Some have done it perfectly. Some have done it like where I'm like,
Yeah,
you know, like we love Green Day. I love Green Day. I have a Green Day tattoo. Like I pretty much love everything, but I'm not really vibing.
No Time of Your Life covers
Yeah,
it.
No, but I'm, like the new stuff they're about to put, that new record to put out, like they're being experimental, and I appreciate it as artists to keep pushing themselves, but it's like not necessarily my cup of tea.
Well, even like Discharge. I'm wearing the Discharge shirt. It's like Grave New World. Like I know you like it, but
I love Grave New World.
I think it sucks, and it's
People
like
don't like it. I know.
you know, they were trying something new, and I respect that, but like sometimes it doesn't work. Whereas like, you know, like just thinking of a band like Corrosion of Conformity, because R.I.P. Reed Mullen, he just passed away.
We
You know,
love
one of our, literally our
We started
biggest
this
influence. But it's like they changed their sound drastically multiple times, and it always worked. Like whether people like, you know, whether the majority like it or not, I mean, they were always going in new directions, and they were always very good at what they did. And I think that that's kind of the space that I would like Red Death to occupy. Like we're always trying new things. We're always, you know, trying to push the envelope forward. And it's like, yeah, you know, like we love Bonded by Blood, and we love Agnostic Front, Cause for Alarm as much as the next guy, but we're trying to incorporate other influences into our music to make it a little more interesting for us. You know what I mean?
Does inspiration like come out of nowhere sometimes? Like you just think of an idea out of the blue, or do you guys have to kind of like put yourself in a certain element or something like that in order for like the ideas to sort of come through?
Like a mix of both, I guess. There's been a lot of things like lyrically or like song title wise or anything where I'll just like won't be thinking about anything at all, and boom, it's in my head. It's like whoa, you know. But a lot of the times you sit around, you think about it, and then comes out too. It's really just a mix.
Yeah.
Interesting. You know, this is going to be my first time seeing Red Death live tonight. Super excited. But, you know, I have this discussion with bands all the time. You know, there's one thing to listen to a band, get an experience from that, but it's another thing playing live.
Yeah.
Is there maybe a similar energy, though, to your live presence as you do when you're in songwriting, or is it a completely separate, like, art altogether?
Yes and no. They're both different animals, but you know, we come at it the same way. We hit it like 100%. You know, the same way. You know, you just go forward with it. You know what I mean? Like just push forward. You know,
Yeah.
treat them the same way, but they're both different animals in and of itself.
I mean, the live show's obviously going to be a little more raw and animalistic. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
The
a little more caveman
the
than like
studio is more like planned and
sit, focus,
played to
yeah.
a click and all this stuff, but the live show is just kind of chaos in its own way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, and there's also like the art of crowd interaction, and I also would imagine like you know
right.
you're playing at a different venue, so like you know each venue also enhances the experience a little bit.
Well, yeah, and on this tour, I mean, we were like at the end of a full U.S. tour, like we played a fucking house show in Kansas City.
Which was
We
awesome.
played big venues in other cities. Like we played a huge venue in L.A. Like huge. I mean, like a big venue for us in L.A.
Compared to
Like,
that house, it was huge.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like we're not playing Shea Stadium, but like you know we're playing like
Yet.
Hey, let's hope. You
I
know
mean,
what
that's always your goal. You want to get there if you
Yeah,
can.
exactly. But I'm saying like we you know we're very comfortable with like playing to any kind of crowd because we come from punk and hardcore. Like we're not like I think the difference between like a punk and hardcore band and like a true blue metal band is like a lot of metal bands kind of come up playing clubs. Like they don't necessarily have the DIY element that we have, and that's not a bad thing. It's just different. Whereas I think we came up playing fucking house shows. We've, you know, done all the like DIY tropes. We've stayed in fucking the grossest houses, and we've played.
yeah, some
I've played
disgusting
drum
places.
sets that don't have a bass drum, and you know whatever, like just the most ridiculous shit. And I think that that's kind of made us able to excel in any type of venue, and like we're not bummed out when we go, like if we're playing a house show and like there's no PA, there's no, you know what I mean, like we're just
You
like
make
fuck
it work. And
Yeah,
when you
let's
make
go.
it work, when it's a situation like that, you can make it work, and there's people there who care. Like the energy is always good.
Yeah.
There's always that danger element, and that's, you know, people like that. I like it. You know what I mean?
That house show was one of my favorite shows that we played on this tour.
I agree. It's been years since I played a house show, so it's cool that we did that, and it was a good one, and people gave a shit.
Yeah, it was
and
sick.
It was fun.
That's a new thing happening now. Apparently, like Norma Jean is like doing like a tour of
I
like
saw that flyer yesterday. They're doing a house show tour. I was
That's
like, well, I
wild.
mean, I think that's cool.
coming to a basement
that's
near
cool.
you.
Yeah,
I think that's cool. I love house shows. Like he said, like for me too. Like I grew up playing house shows. I grew up
Yeah.
playing punk house shows and stuff like that. It's cool that you can. We're here now, and we're going back to that. And I would still like to keep doing it. I don't want to like not do that. I love when bands do that. Like
Yeah.
going back to Green Day. Like Billy Joe just made something online talking about how he wants to play backyards and stuff. Like that is straight up cool.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
so cool. Like I think all bands, bigger bands, should do that.
You know, you brought up something before, like, and I've always, even as like a music journalist and a music reviewer, even I've had a hard time like distinguishing this, like, because metal and hardcore, they're both very aggressive, dark, in-your-face forms of music. I never understood how like one person could love a band like Agnostic Front, but not appreciate a band like, you know, Slayer or Megadeth. So
Right.
like, could maybe. What would you say is like the difference between metal and hardcore, and what do you think makes something hardcore? Like when I interviewed Roger Merritt, he says it's the lyrical subject matter that makes a band hardcore. I interviewed Harm's Way, and they says it's the type of shows that you're playing.
Right. Well, it's like, it's funny because like I'm a lifelong fan of both. Like I got into both at the same time. You know what I mean? And like
Same.
to me, the energy is the same for both. And even like, you know, not to discredit what, you know, Roger the Godfather said, but like Sepultura has political lyrics, you know, and lyrics that are very hardcore. You know what I mean?
Manifest. That's
Exactly, right. That's what I'm
I mean,
saying.
Metallica's got those lyrics.
Yeah, and I
All
mean,
those
I
metal
remember
bands,
seeing
Megadeth.
the video for Refuse Resist when I was like 13 years old or something, and like being a fan of like the Dead Kennedys and Minor Threat, I was like, this is like the same thing. I mean, musically, it's like a bulldozer, like it's a different vibe, but like the idea, the politics, and the struggle that is you know presented in that music, it's very similar to hardcore punk. And I think that a lot of the best metal bands, like all styles, like whether you're talking about Saint Vitus or Sepultura or whatever, like you know whatever, a lot of them come from punk and hardcore, and they have a deep knowledge of that music. So like
Vice versa too.
exactly,
Yeah,
right.
exactly,
And
exactly.
yeah, the best, like a lot of the best hardcore punk bands, like your COC, your Agnostic Front, like whatever, those bands have like knowledge of metal. They have not. So I think it's
Even from day one, the Bad Brains, they loved Black
Right.
Sabbath and stuff
Yep.
like that. That being the Cro-Mags, Motorhead, Sabbath, you
Yeah.
know, stuff like that. The original metal stuff, you know.
right. Yeah.
Judas Priest, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And I've always found it like I never understood how people can like nitpick it so much. Like
It's weird. It's very like
I heard like if you were like going to like an Agnostic Front show back in the day in like a Judas Priest vest or something
Yeah.
like that, you're kind of setting yourself up for punishment.
I've listened to interviews with like Pete Steele and stuff where he says that he's like talking. He's like, oh yeah, he's the fucking metal guy at the fucking punk show. Yeah, it's like
Kirk Hammett at CBGB's,
Yeah.
the Crumbsuckers gig. That's a famous story. Like,
Yeah.
he got fucked with. You know what I mean? Like, they were just like, get out of here, you rocker.
it's like the Crumbsuckers sound like a metal band to me.
Absolutely.
Fucking guy is in propane.
That's
now.
what I'm
I
saying.
know,
Like
I
they
know.
sound like a metal band to me, and you know, I think that like one of the first hardcore records I ever heard was Agnostic Front, Cause for Alarm, and like I remember getting the CD when I was like 11 or 12 years old and being like, this sounds like Anthrax. You know what I mean? Because it does. And
It's
like
very similar.
It's just like I never really thought that they were that different from each other, like, or even Discharge. Like, Hear Nothing, See Nothing, Say Nothing is like just as heavy as fucking Slayer. You know what I mean? It's
And it makes sense that's like a huge influence on like Ride the Lightning and records like that, and like, you know, Max Cavalera rocking the Discharge sticker on his guitar,
Yeah.
you know, Jeff Hanneman rocking Discharge. It makes sense to me.
yeah. There's so much similarity between the two, you know.
And hardcore evolved so much. Like when you
Did.
like you compare Agnostic Front to Code Orange.
It's very different stuff.
Very different. But
Yes.
you know, they're both like very similar in the way that they're dedicated to what they do and they have a drive and they know what needs to get done and they work their asses off and they tour, and like I admire both for that, you know.
And I have to watch my ass equally at both of those shows. So.
Yeah, that's definitely
I mean,
true.
people go off for Code Orange and
Yeah.
Agnostic Front. I mean, I like both bands, so I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have two more questions for you.
Yeah.
We're going back to the songwriting. I love asking every artist this because it's the hardest question for every artist to answer. I want you both to answer.
Yeah.
How do you know when a song is done?
When it's done, where you listen back and you're like, this sounds like how we wanted it to sound.
All right.
That's a tough question. I mean, I think you just know. Like when you play it as a unit and it doesn't feel like it's missing anything. When you play it together in the fucking practice space and you're like, yeah, that doesn't need another riff, doesn't need another part, it doesn't need another guitar solo. It's good as it is.
And then listening back to when it's recorded, the whole full thing's fleshed out. You just
Yeah.
know. Like
Yeah.
you're not thinking like, ah, damn, we should have done this or that. Like
Right.
you listen to it, and you're just like, oh yeah, you know. That's when you know.
Yeah.
Nice simple answer. I asked Mark Morton that on the phone the other day,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that was like that question alone was exceeded the amount of time I was allowed.
His music is a lot more complex than our
Yeah.
music, so
we're still DIY punks at the
Exactly,
heart of
like,
it, you know what I mean?
we're,
Like, you can't
you
take
know,
that out
we're
of us.
cavemen. Like we're still like,
Oh yeah.
3 riffs, song is done. You know what I mean? Like, so he's riding on a whole nother.
Yeah, verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus.
Right, right.
And the final question I wanted to ask you, and I really, really wanted to talk about this, is the DC scene because obviously DC is known for hardcore
Yeah.
and so much, but like when,
Mecca, yeah.
But when you look, Dying Fetus is from
Yeah.
there, Maryland, same.
I mean,
shit.
they're from 10 minutes from DC.
They're literally
so.
like right outside.
Same shit.
I consider them DC.
Yeah, me
They're
too.
right there.
Yeah, but you also have Periphery and Animals as leaders
Yeah.
from there as well. So,
Mhm.
I'm just curious. There has to be, a diverse scene, too, right? It's not like DC is just known for hardcore.
Well, DC, I feel like DC always gets overlooked for other styles of music because of how prominent hardcore is. But, you got to think, DC, I mean, that's the doom capital of
Yeah,
America.
Obsessed.
Pentagram,
Pentagram.
Obsessed, Iron Man. You know what I
always
mean?
thought it was Portland, Oregon.
No, well, maybe it is now for the newer bands, but I'm
Yeah.
saying those bands are obviously the new school, but I'm saying the old school bands. I mean, if you look at an interview with Lee Dorian from Cathedral, he's like, when Cathedral came to America for the first time, I was scared to play DC because that's where all the heavy hitters were from. You know what I mean? And so that style, there's a ton of shit like that. There was a pretty big death metal scene in the 90s, Deceased and bands like that, and
That scene's
obviously
still thriving right
it
now in
is.
DC.
Death metal's huge in DC
Death
right
metal's
now.
huge in DC for sure, and I like that. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect it. That's why I think it's cool.
Yeah, and there's obviously go-go music is the sound of the city. I mean, that's
Oh, yeah.
the most popular music in DC. But my point is that DC has a lot going for it musically that isn't just hardcore punk. But obviously hardcore punk I think is the most well-known, thing, Fugazi and Minor Threat, the Bad
And
Brains.
DIY comes from the DC hardcore scene,
Yeah, for
straight
sure.
edge,
Yep.
just big things that transcend hardcore and even just music like CM Punk's a professional wrestler and straight edge,
Yeah.
rocking the X's, I mean, that
Yeah.
goes above and beyond the music,
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
think
right.
they influenced not only just the sound of hardcore, but really the
culture,
life of it.
everything.
Yeah, absolutely, they did, 110%.
I think for sure, and,
Yeah.
and I think also I mean, it's you see it all in the city. You see, man, I mean, what Ian MacKay's new band. I don't know if they have a name yet, but it's
I don't either.
when they play a fucking show, everyone's there because it's his influence on DC is he may as well be the mayor. You know
I mean,
what I mean?
he walks around when I see him. He's got the mayor vibe. It's like, oh, there's the mayor.
Yeah,
or,
right.
Or
It's
the town sheriff. There he is.
For sure.
Like the old Western trope. There's the sheriff walking around.
Yep.
That'd be awesome.
And then it's obviously DC DC hardcore is something that all of us love, and I wouldn't necessarily say that we're influenced by a lot of those bands. I think we are in other facets of our lives.
An energetic
Yeah.
sense. Like the Bad Brains are one of the greatest live bands of all
course.
time. You want to try and impress someone like they've impressed people. You want to try and get up there and put on a show like they have. I mean, we can't go up there and do backflips and stuff like that. But
Right.
You're trying to get to that energy as close as you can because you want kids to get their money's worth and
I'm
have an
expecting
impression.
backflips today.
Oh,
You ain't
yeah.
getting one out of me.
No, no.
I don't know. With a bass, I don't know.
I'd be impressed.
That would be nice. Yeah, I haven't done a backflip since I hit my neck on the diving board when I did one in a pool in like 2002. So it's been a while.
You're
But-
scarred.
yeah. Oh yeah. I'm never doing
fall
one
off
again.
the-
No
fall
way.
off the bike, you
Yeah.
gotta-
No way. No way. No way. No way. But yeah, I mean, like, fucking Minor Threat's my favorite band. You know what I mean?
Like
Like,
Minor Threat.
it's just like
Great classic
that,
band.
That shit is always gonna be influential to us and important to us. But I think that like one of the things that we see and that we love about DC is it's a diverse city, and the music is just as diverse as the people. And I think that a lot of people from outside the city don't necessarily know that, and that's okay because they don't live there. So why would they? But I think that like, you know, there's a lot going on that people don't necessarily even think about because, you know, they're just like, Minor Threat, Bad Brains. And it's like, yeah, of course. I mean, that's the shit. But, you know, whatever.
It's like that here. Like, you know, people hear New York hardcore, they'll just think of Agnostic Front and
Of
sick
course.
of it all. But, like, there's a thriving,
So-
still great hardcore scene. Don't let the bigger names, like, overshadow the
No,
rest.
of course.
for
And I
sure.
mean, there's so many bands from New York, I mean, that have such a specific New York sound. I mean, like Typo Negative and bands like that we love that are like, so it's like, that's the Brooklyn Boot Boys, you know what I mean? That's the sound that just came from here. And a lot of people are like quick to be like, oh, Agnostic Front, but there's so much other stuff, not just Typo Negative, but like a ton of other bands, you
Like
know what I mean?
Agony, stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Biohazard.
Biohazard, yeah. So, yeah.
So before we go, I want to thank you guys so much for your time today. Really looking forward to the show tonight.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Is there just anything else you guys want to promote in terms of tours or even some new music? This will be uploaded by midnight, so if it hasn't been
Okay.
announced here, don't say it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We got some stuff in the works. Nothing that we can announce quite yet, but you know,
We're working.
We're working
We
on
will
it.
be active.
Yes, there will
It's
be
just
shows.
We can't tell you what is what yet, but
Yes.
we will be active. That's what we can
There
say.
will be stuff, so don't worry, and we will be coming to a town near you, wherever you may be. So
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Whether in a basement or a venue.
it could be anywhere. Who
Yo,
knows?
if
Like,
it's a
you know-
house, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
Like we just said, that Kansas City show we played was like a week ago, a week and a
Yeah,
half
we
ago.
yeah.
Great show.
You got to play in my apartment.
Yeah, well, fuck it, we'll do it.
We would. Yeah.
We're not afraid. You know,
Nah,
let's do it.
I like weird stuff like that.
Piss off my neighbors.
Yeah, I don't know
Yes.
if there will be parking though. You live in Manhattan, right? So I don't know, man. We'll see. Might have to double park and go up there and play.
Yeah.
You know, whatever.
No, just park, like, block the whole road.
Yeah,
piss them off
there
even
you go.
more.
People do that anyway. Yeah,
just,
exactly.
Just cause a riot.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you guys so much. Everybody, we are here with Red Death Sickness Divine. Be sure to pick that up if you haven't already. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We'll see you next time.
Oh yeah.